Hey, this is Bradley Chubb, and you're listening to The Snap.
Hey, this is Cortland Sutton.
Hey, this is Tim Patrick.
And you're listening to The Snap
with Sidney Jones
on Broncos
Podcast Network. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for this week's edition of The Snap. As always, I'm your host, Sidney Jones, and it's week 5 of the regular season already, and the Broncos are set to face the Indianapolis Colts in prime time on Thursday night. So joining me here on The Snap today to take a look at this matchup is Prime Video's sideline reporter, Kaylee Hartung. Kaylee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Sydney. Glad to be here in Denver.
Yes, glad to have you here. It's crazy to think it's already week 5. How's the season been going?
I know. As soon as you said that, I was like, wow, how did we get here so fast? I mean, working games on Thursdays already shortens the week. You know, it's a tough situation for the guys to be in. And in terms of our flow of getting information from them when they're just coming off Sunday games, everything is so condensed. And I think one of my first observations from being in this role, as I've gotten a couple of weeks under my belt, is just the week goes by so fast. So here we are. Now I'm realizing this season is going to go by fast.
Yeah, it definitely will. You know, Kaylee, as you're gearing up for this game here, what do you think about this matchup as a whole? Kind of what excites you about it?
I mean, I think we're looking at two teams who are both still searching for identities, right? They've had these flashes, both the Colts and the Broncos, showing us what they could be capable of, but admittedly, both teams have been disappointed. I don't think either one is sitting with a record that they would want to have. And then here we are on a short week, both teams hit by injuries, some season ending in ways that are absolutely devastating, others that are more short term, but nevertheless, nobody wants to see that. So what I think we can look to, though, is what those injuries do for these teams in terms of creating opportunities. You would hope for other guys to step up. So I'm excited by the idea of who can be a hero for their team here. I think that's the challenge for me in preparing for anything to happen. And I would love to be surprised by a breakout performance that makes, I think, the viewing for the game fun, and it presents an interesting opportunity for me in those post-game interviews, right? To really honor this moment for that player, if they do have that breakout moment, and figure out the best way to connect with them after what you could only imagine is an emotional experience on some level. And I think, quite honestly, I am excitable in my first season covering the NFL. I'm looking forward to my first game at Mile High Stadium. I've never been to a game there. So excited to take in the atmosphere. Yeah. And learn what it's all about. So you'll have to give me some heads up on what I can expect and usher me along.
Yes, absolutely. You're going to love it. Broncos fans are absolutely crazy. One thing is, I know this is more, the players look at this more just with the altitude and playing out there. But honestly, I've been living here for 3 years now, and I still get tired walking up the stairs. So be careful with the altitude as you're running down the sidelines.
Fabulous. And I'm a runner. You know, I always have a security guard with me on the sideline. No, I mean, like, I'm a runner on the sidelines of the game. I'm not a runner in real life. But I always have to sort of prep my security guard who I get assigned at each venue. Like, if I take off running and don't tell you, and don't give you a heads up, don't be offended. I'm not trying to run away from you. I'm trying to run to the story. So just like, keep up. But my commitment to cardio otherwise has not prepared me for
Well, once it's done, bring some water. You might get a little tired.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, Kaylee, I know you're going to be here at the UC Health Training Center today for production meetings. Who are you looking forward to talking to about this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible not to look forward to talking to Russell Wilson. Right. He's a guy who is such a superstar in the league, someone who we're all fully aware of what he's capable of on the field and also as a leader. I'm curious how many minutes into the conversation with him it's going to take before he says, "Let's ride." All joking aside, he is a special leader in the league. And so I want to know what he's told this team in his State of the Union meeting that he holds each week and where his head is at with this. I think, he's always going to err more on the positive side, or a concept I know he's deeply entrenched in is staying neutral. But what does that message look like, especially when he's here with a new team leading this group of men for the first time? So yeah, excited to talk to Russell. I've known him for a long time. And that's been the fun thing for me about getting to the NFL and covering it for the first time is I'm seeing a lot of guys who I covered when they were stars in college.
Right.
And so getting to continue their story alongside them now at the next level is really fun. So I love seeing familiar faces, and Russell is one of those for me. And then, Nathaniel Hackett. There are so many new coaches in the league, these first year coaches who are confronting interesting challenges and being critiqued in the process. And so I'm really curious to get to meet him for the first time and also see where his head's at.
You're going to love him. He's absolutely fantastic.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Well, Kaylee, you mentioned Russell Wilson in this offense. The offense's performance has been a bit up and down so far to start the season. Despite the loss against the Raiders on Sunday, I thought Russell put up arguably one of his best performances as a Bronco. What have been your thoughts on, Russell and company so far this season?
Yeah, I think plenty has been written picking this offense apart, which is not hard to do when you're the second lowest scoring offense in the league. From the game management to problems in the red zone. And then you've got Russ at times holding onto the ball too long and also not hitting the deep ball as people expect him to. Not yet finding that rhythm with his receivers, I think, in the way that, again, you expect him to, because you know what he's capable of. But you're right. I think there was tremendous progress made last week. Definitely some good things to build off of. I think Denver has scored touchdowns in 3 of its last 4 red zone trips after going 0 for 6.
Yep.
So he's had some big passing plays that I think should instill some confidence, but they can't have self-inflicted wounds. I mean, those will get you every time. Just ask the Colts. They know about those too. So I think you're looking at 2 offenses here who need to find consistency really badly. And I think it's such an interesting anecdote to look back at the last couple of years, and you see Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady, these veteran quarterbacks going to new teams, winning Super Bowls with those new teams. So let that give Broncos fans some hope, and Colts fans too, for that matter. But patience is a virtue, and so much needs to be built to find that groove, to find that rhythm. You can't expect that to happen overnight, no matter how much experience and talent these guys have. But I'm an optimist as a sports fan in general. That good.
Yes.
It's fun to be a fan.
It is.
So let's hope that they can find their rhythm. And I think if the defense can consistently dominate, as we've seen the Broncos defense capable of doing, really good things can happen. And let Russ cook.
Yes.
Let him create. That's what he's built his career on. And I think you've got to trust in that when the time's right.
Well, Kaylee, you mentioned this Denver defense. They've been playing at such a high level this season, but, unfortunately they really struggled to stop the run against the Raiders on Sunday. Josh Jacobs, he was a force to be reckoned with. How do you think this defense will really fare going up against maybe, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor if he plays?
I mean, that's the biggest question mark, right? When you have someone as talented as Jonathan Taylor, if he's not on the field, you can't pretend like that doesn't change the game. Right. I know any player you talk to in the NFL will say, there's a next man up mentality. Of course there is. These guys are all professionals. People are expected to step up in the face of injuries to those stars. But I think when you have an issue as well on the Broncos defense, losing Randy Gregory, I mean, injuries are going to be the story of this game, So there are a lot of question marks. I think I'm going to be really keyed in pregame on what we're seeing. I think I'll be surprised if we learn long before kickoff if Jonathan Taylor is playing or not. Yep. We've heard him in the last 24 hours optimistic that he'll play, because of course he is. He is a workhorse. He is somebody who plays hard whistle to whistle and wants to be defined by how hard he works. But I think you're hearing a little less optimism from some of the Colts staff that he'll be ready to go. Again, a short week isn't doing anybody any favors. Nope. But again, you go back to the Randy Gregory injury, and here's a Broncos defense who has to figure out how to step up without him. I expect them to lean a lot on Bradley Chubb's leadership this week. He wants to be a voice for this team and for this defense in that way. And I think he's taking a lot of pride in that. So yeah, it's just a let's hope that next man up mentality works for both teams to create opportunities and give us good matchups.
Yeah, we've heard from defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero this week, and he said it's a great opportunity for both Baron Browning and rookie Nick Bonito to step up. So I think they'll get a lot more playing time this week than we've seen in the past. Kaylee, last one for you here on the matchup. Both teams are coming off losses this week. So who do you think really needs this win more on Thursday night? Do you have a game prediction?
Oh, man. So I should ask Amazon this question because I don't know the answer, in the sense that when I was at ESPN, if I was working a game, I wasn't allowed to give a game prediction. Like you see Kirk
I didn't even
Herbstreit
think about that.
Yeah, you see Kirk Herbstreit on College Game Day, and when Lee Corso gives his headgear pick, and they're picking, all the big matchups on Saturday, Kirk doesn't give a prediction for the game he's working. So I'm not going to give a prediction.
Okay, fair.
I'm not trying to get in trouble early
totally
in this thing. Appreciate that. But man, it's hard to say who needs it more, right? I mean, I think the Colts are really close to having been 0-4 at this point when they sit at 1-2-1. I think you've seen more flashes of positivity from what the Broncos could do. So in a sense, I think the Colts need it more when you look at the road ahead. But I mean, let's be real, both teams need this win.
Right.
Both teams need this win to build confidence with a new quarterback. With teams that are trying to find their identities, nobody wants to give one away.
Well, Kaylee, appreciate you sharing your insight on this matchup. I want to switch gears for a couple minutes here. As many of my listeners know, here on the Snap, one of my main goals is to highlight women's impact in and around the NFL. So I want to dive into your career. For some of my listeners who may not know, Kaylee, what does your role with Prime Video really entail?
Yeah, so I'm the sideline reporter, which means I am a component to Al Michaels in the booth calling play-by-play, and Kirk Herbstreit as our analyst. And I'm the eyes and ears on the field. I have a vantage point that is uniquely mine for that game. And I think that if you go back to our game last week, as the Dolphins were visiting the Bengals, you really saw the value of a sideline reporter in that moment. When you have Tua Tagovailoa go down, it's a scary moment for everybody involved, and such an opportunity for me to really own my role and responsibility in that moment and make sure that I am getting viewers the most up-to-date information about his status. When I mean, let's face it, everyone watching, I don't care who you were cheering for, or if you weren't cheering for anybody at all, you wanted to know how he was.
Yeah.
You wanted to know where he was. You wanted to know how he was responding, if he was able to communicate with anybody. And I was really proud of the job I did in that moment, from getting information from the Dolphins staff to being able to speak with Mike McDaniel at halftime and get his first person account of what his conversations were like with Tua while he was on the ground of that field, and getting the mood from the team. And also, a report that never got in the game because you can only do so much, right? Was asking Zach Taylor if the Bengals game plan would change with Teddy Bridgewater in, which the answer was it wouldn't, because Teddy Bridgewater has the experience that he has. But, that is the role of the sideline reporter. It, in its most basic element, is to keep the viewers up to date in a way that only you can because of your vantage point on the field.